Martuwarra, ngajunu nilawal and Polina, ngayu I Martuwarra manan, ngai mandajara nyigina nganga in Broome, my home, ngayu lian buru Martuwarra. So in my language, I just said, good day, my name is Anne Paulina, and I'm a woman who belongs to the Martuwarra, the Fitzroy River, in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. So in terms of property rights, the river owns me, and I'm under a moral obligation to ensure that I stand to protect not only the river's right to live, but the river's right to flow. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, that I am in Broome, in Jugun and Yarra country. Broome is my home. I was born here, but most of my life work is with the Martuwarra, the Fitzroy River. In terms of all of that, yes, it's, there's all those accolades, but my aim in life is to be a good and decent human being and to leave the planet having done my job as a good ancestor. The work that I do is not just focused on Indigenous people and our world, but is on the well-being of intergenerational equity. How can we leave this precious planet and the due inheritance that is due to all our young people, Indigenous and not, in terms of understanding that the Kimberley, these beautiful places across the planet, are performing a function of helping to assist Mother Earth to survive and thrive. So from that perspective, I as an Indigenous person, that is my aim, is to go and be a good, decent human being. This is not a job for me. I do work a couple of days a week at Notre Dame because we're living in a capitalist system and I have to pay the mortgage, but this is my destiny. I was born into this role. I come from a very strong matriarchal line. My great-grandmother, her family were massacred in the George Range just out of Nuku'mbah in the late 80s. And from there, my great-grandmother went into Nuku'mbah, and there's a whole story about the power of that community in terms of looking for justice and equity from this country for our lands, because we are very much focused as Indigenous people on the well-being of everyone and everything around us. So we come from what we call a holistic society where we don't cut things up, as opposed to a dichotomous society that does that. So the land, the water, the people, the environment, our non-human kin are all intrinsically entwined. When we are born in the Kimberley, we are given what we call a Judin Jura totem. It's a creature, a plant, an animal, a bird. It's a creature and a system that we are bonded to for life. My totem happens to be the blue-tongued lizard. So from that perspective, who could believe that an animal, a creature, a bird, the wind, the trees, the flowers can teach us how to be fully human? So one of the things, as I said, is that we are born into a world as Indigenous people where we have a totem, and that totem teaches us an ethics of care and love for a non-human creature, to understand that as human beings, we are one part of the cycle of life, and that we have a very, very big footprint in regards to not only the destruction of the planet, but our duty of care to hold love and wisdom and all these teachings in our hearts so that we can leave something behind for our young people. They are living not just in the future, they are living now, and they have real needs now. So as I said, the work that I'm doing is really focused on all of that. I want to thank Eremos for being brave and pushing the boundaries in your own thinking, your values, your ethics, your belief system of building on listening to country. This inaugural gathering is very important. 40 people are giving up their time to share and understand how we can take our rightful place as human beings in holding life, in ensuring that the planet, Mother Earth, will continue to thrive and into, not just now, into the future. So when I talk about living water, what does that actually mean? And one of the things that we say as Indigenous people is that water holds memory and it builds new memory. And so it's a living system. It is a living system. And one of the things I've been really sharing with fellow Australians and indeed global citizens is, how do you really focus on the 5 key principles that we as Indigenous people have in terms of our duty of care, not just to rivers, but to everything around us? So the 5 R's, as I called it, is very, very important. building relationships, investing in those relationships, particularly relationships where people may come from a diverse perspective. When we have respect, we can enter into really understanding what is it that we need to be doing, what is it that we need to be understanding in terms of where this planet is going and how it is to thrive and survive. So reciprocity is a very, very big form of capital in terms of that circular economy that people are talking about. This circular economy really takes in not just capitalism, it takes in recognition and investing in social capital, human capital, environmental capital, and we need some form of trade. So the capitalist system thinking is in there. So the work that we're doing in the Kimberley is really looking at how do we speak back to government? How do we speak back to business as usual? What are the new economies, which we are calling the forever economies, or the economics of well-being? The economics of well-being that looks at what does it take to build a good and decent human being? What are the values? What are the ethics? What are the virtues? How do we understand that we're living in a capitalist colonial system, which is very much around trade and exchange? What does that new economy look like? And so one of the things that I'm doing here with my people and with amazing scientists, researchers, practitioners, poets, storytellers, artists, creative thinkers, is to really look at how do we showcase this globally unique river system that has been recognized, one, as national heritage, guided by the serpents that we called our ancestral beings, who have given us our law, who have given us our values, our ethics, our virtues. How do we understand the world in which we live and bring our fellow Australians with us on this journey? So we look at this and we go, that's why one of the things I asked you to have a look at was a conversation piece that was in a link that is there. And one of the reasons why I'm asking you to have a look at that link is that I have just, with Professor Quentin Grafton, made a beautiful film which includes 3 rivers talking: the Barker, or the Darling River, the Roper River in the Northern Territory and what is actually occurring up there, and then the Martuwarra. What are we doing in the Martuwarra to really showcase to our fellow Australians and indeed global citizens that there is new ways to make money if that is your main motive. But how do we do it where it is not extractive? It's regenerative. And so there is a conversation that seems to be off the shelf at the moment with our country around the nature positive market. One of the things when I first heard about that was, it's a shame we have to destroy biodiversity to create a new market. And then when I spoke to diverse people from, my role as Commissioner for Water last year, which took me right across this country, across the jurisdictions, across the territories, to look at our most precious resource in this country and indeed globally, which is water. How do we get into conversations where we understand that this is a living system and our well-being is heavily dependent on water being of a quality and a state and an availability that gives us life? Because we as humans are also made up of water. And so how do we understand such a precious resource? My work globally is showing that rivers across the world are being destroyed, groundwater systems are drying up, and water is the new gold. This is where the new economies will be heavily grounded. So that conversation piece really takes you into a very, very short trailer where we are showing that these rivers are asking the question, what are the humans doing? And so it's very important that when we look at all of these things, we say, hey, what can rivers teach us? To not be so arrogant, to be in a world where it's ecological, not ego-logical, driven by eco, not ego. How do we come together and understand diversity? How do we come together and understand that water reform is critical now? And I say that having been the inaugural Indigenous scientist who has just left the Murray-Darling Basin, sitting on there for 3 years to look at how do we bring Indigenous wisdom, how do we bring Indigenous law, first law, into regulating these river systems so that we can all have a just future. So the work that I'm doing is very much grounded in the Martuwarra, the Fitzroy River, But this knowledge, this wisdom, these films, these stories are really having a ripple effect and impacting on water right across not just this country, but the planet. So water, as I said, is the new gold. It is getting scarce. One of the things in that story that is in the conversation piece is the fact that in the Murray-Darling Basin, you are heavily influenced by water markets, water trading. And the most important point is that much of that water is foreign owned. And then we jump to the Roper River and the Martuwarra, and we see in West Australia and the Northern Territory that there is no water market, that there is no water trading. And what we are doing right now is giving our most precious resource free to the richest people on the planet to profit at the demise of everything and everyone around us. So we are not anti-development. We are saying, what does just development look like on just terms? And one of the really important things is that prior to colonisation, to settlement, this is the way we manage the commons for the greater common good of all of us. Those of you who are familiar with Eleanor Ostrom's work will know that we must come together from a bioregional and a bicultural perspective. We need to sit around the table. We need to understand diversity. We need to understand the propositions for development that are on the table so that we can understand cumulative impacts of development, cumulative impacts of risk, but most importantly, the opportunity for all of us in the regions to sit around the table and say, how can we look at the new economies that involve Indigenous wisdom and thinking into the complexity of learning? How do we develop and defend the regions for the greater good of all? These are very serious public interest matters. They impact not just on Indigenous people and our non-human family, but they impact on each and every one of us living in these bioregions, living in these watersheds, living in these catchments. So there is a great opportunity to do that. One of the big lessons I learned as Commissioner for Water last year right across this country is that there is no trust capital at any level. Everyone is conscious about what is going on, how we are all struggling in this lucky country, which used to be a fair go for all, what is actually happening. And this conversation around growth really needs to have a pause, and we need to think about how do we reform the economics of well-being and the opportunity to allow and support our farmers to grow beautiful food that is we are so dependent on. So it's really a time where we need to sit around the table, but we call it wake up the snake. How do we wake up the consciousness of the people, you good people, all good people, to understand that what we're talking about is the need to balance land, water, people and the environment intrinsically together. We need to see it from a holistic perspective. We need to care for it the way Indigenous people have done from the beginning of time. So very, very important. So what I wanted to do now was to just share a little film that I've made just to bring you inside of the river system. I'm happy for it to be recorded as part of the story. It's just that you will not be able to have a copy of this. So I'm happy for Eremos to film the film when it is being shown, but not to keep a separate copy aside. So I think if we just sit back and watch this film, we can then go into how I will close off the first 30 minutes so that we can have a pause, have a bit of a break and come back with some questions. Let's see the film now. Thank you.
Martuwarra, Martuwarra, yanai, Martuwarra, Martuwarra. Linjir bangai, no, linjir bangai, no, Martuwarra, Martuwarra, yanai, Martuwarra, Martuwarra. We sing that story about this river, you know. My favorite story when people ask me, I always sing this song. Martuwarra. It's very important to me, this river. I will love it river, you know. How can Kapman gonna try to take over the river? Kapman didn't born in this river. We born in alongside of the river. You know, we should be the one that on the river, not Kapman. It's law. We got a law too, you know, and the river got the law.
The river is very important for us. You know, river got the meaning, river got the story, river got the songs. We want to protect our river. And river is it's like a mother, you know.
Martuwarra is really important to me, to everybody, Aboriginal, as broken heart for Fitzroy River. Not only Nyigana people, the Martuwarra is 100 kilometers away, way out to other tributary territory of other languages, Aboriginal people. They worry about Fitzroy River do, you know?
The river always been there, and the river need to be there. You know, it's not only just a big river with trees, birds, and animals and plants. There's also a feel to that place, and the spiritual feels are like it's very settled. It's very calm and relaxed. It's a place where it gives you something, it gives you a peace of mind on, you know, the presence of that place that has an energy that, you know, that can actually charge you up and restore things within your lian.
We go out with our families, and our grandmother still teaches us stuff about the river, water, fishes, the surrounding areas, floodplains.
Today we still carry that knowledge, and the way we gather, eat, cook and hunt for food is important because it gives us present of what today is about for indigenous people, you know.
And you just take all the worries off your shoulders, you know, and it's a place to either healing and, you know, just bring you back down to earth and you're not worrying about anything else in town, and you just feel free at the river.
But we got to think about our future generation. We got to think about what live in our country. We got all a creature, you know. And when they want to try to do something, grading the road or grading whatever they want to build, we gotta know where they are bush tucker, where they are bush medicine in a country, whatever. But animal nesting place, but the bird got a nesting place there for a long time. Or kangaroo is all this sort of thing, breeding place somewhere, you know. And they gotta have a home too, you know. Not thinking about the biggest of the land is better to grow garden, or land is better for something to build money. But, you know, I'm not here. I don't think about the money. I think about right up my country, you know.
And I strongly, you know, speak for Martuwarra. And I want to see Martuwarra let the river flow free.
This river got story, you know, big history. That Wallunga stream. If river gonna go dry, that's, you know, kill the culture. We need to, you know, fight for this river, not to drain all the water out.
If we are to learn any lessons from the Barker, if we're to learn lessons from the Murray-Darling Basin, we should learn that lesson, that if we are to have good outcomes for the rivers of life, good outcomes for communities, we need to have those three fundamentals: basic water justice, distributive water justice, a fair share for all, and procedural water justice, a respected voice around the table.
That's fine, we can cut it there. All right. Look, thanks for sharing that. I just quickly, because the time's moving fast as well, is, as I said, my work is global. And so what we're doing, you know, the work I had as commissioner, the work I'm doing on the Murray-Darling Basin as the inaugural scientist, which has just ceased. It's just amazing that what we need is this Indigenous knowledge. And as I said earlier when I came on, this Indigenous knowledge, not just here in this country, but right across the planet, is coming as a gift of love and wisdom to all of us, because we see ourselves as planetary citizens. We care about our fellow human beings. These are public interest matters that will impact on each and every one of us. Importantly, the impact on our non-human kin. So the work I do is global, and one of the things is, yes, I am a poet, a storyteller, a filmmaker, an academic, publishing in lots of different forms of writing, because I'm trying to wake up the snake, wake up the consciousness of the people, to bring the people with us. So we need multiple ways of doing that. Several months ago, I had a little conversation with school children at school, primary school teachers, and talked to them about climate and whatever. And within a week, they came back to me with a beautiful comic strip, 3 pages, of me telling the story in terms of ask an expert. But what was more important was what they took away as what is their message, how do they care for the planet and wherever they live in this beautiful country. So it was interesting to hear that they heard the meaning of my story, but they were the ones that came back to me and said, this is the moral obligation we will have as young school children back to you, to give you confidence that young people and the old ones are also hearing what you're saying. So one of the things was I created a little animation, and before I go to that animation, which is going to be shared with all of you so that you can use it, I also want to say that part of what we're doing nationally and globally is really focus on the right for our river, the Martuwarra, to become more known. Because, as I say, whether you come for one night, 1 week, or one lifetime, once you come here, you're always a part of the Kimberley and the Martuwarra, and Andrew knows that. So what we're saying is that I just want to share that one of the things that we're profiling is getting this river known globally. The river is a published author. That is a very, very big deal for prestigious academic journals. Martuwarra River of Life is the first author on many of the things that we publish. 6 months ago, I had a conversation with someone from UNESCO, from Waiwanet. Would you like to build a living water museum? I said, do not worry about it. We've already got one. And they said, what do you mean? I said, the valley tracts are so diverse, the cultural diversity. So the Martuwarra Fitzroy River watershed last year in May in Bali at the World Water Forum was recognised as the first in the world as a living water museum. And so what we've done is generated a massive database for sharing and learning, which has multiple films, stories, all of those things. So when I finish, there will also be the animation that's available to you to show you how we're impacting on planetary health and well-being, and 2, a website that you will be able to share, which has got amazing films, 3 to 5 minutes, text, stories, called Living Water Heritage. And so just before I finish my conversation with all of you, I want to just go to that animation and share it. But these resources will be available. And once again, thank you for giving me the time to speak and share with you. It's going to take all of us. So if we watch the little animation, maybe we can have a little break and then go into questions. But if we could go to the animation now, that would be fabulous. Thank you very much. Planetary health, how we're telling this story across the planet, and watching the metrics. Thank you.
The key to solving climate change may lie in Indigenous wisdom. In the Kimberley region of Western Australia, Indigenous First Australians are partnering with researchers to pioneer environmental planning and management. By blending ancient wisdom, Indigenous First law, and Indigenous science with Western science, they're reimagining our relationship with nature and climate action. Professor Anne Polina of the Nulungu Research Institute at the University of Notre Dame, Australia, argues that the key to our planet's future may lie in Indigenous knowledge and wisdom. The Martuwarra, named the Fitzroy River by European settlers, flows through the Kimberley region of Western Australia. For the Indigenous peoples, the river is not merely a geographical feature, but a living ancestral serpent being and the source of law, spirituality, and identity. This deep connection between people and place is at the heart of recent research by Indigenous scholar Professor Paulina. Paulina champions the position that Indigenous leadership, wisdom, and governance are crucial in addressing climate change and achieving environmental and multi-species justice, providing the ability to include this ancient wisdom and practice towards a climate chance. Today, Martuwarra people showcase the Fitzroy River as Australian national and Aboriginal cultural heritage. However, it faces threats of water extraction for agricultural and large-scale mining, including fracking. These plans, Paulina argues, continue a long history of exploitation and ongoing invasive, unjust development that has transformed a region of peace, harmony, and balance into a situation of incremental ecocide and genocide. Central to the Indigenous perspective on these issues is the concept of first law. This law, passed down through generations, governs the relationship between people and country. It is not merely a set of rules, but a holistic system that encompasses spirituality and sustainable management practices. The researchers introduce the concept of bukarakara, an Indigenous philosophy that calls for us to learn from history to plan for the future, but to enact these lessons now. This perspective challenges linear Western notions of time, offering a holistic view of environmental stewardship. Martuwarra people believe that human and non-human beings have an equal right to life. Everything is in relationship as kin, as family. They see humans as part of nature, not separate from or dominant over it. This worldview recognizes the interconnectedness of living things and challenges the dominant Western paradigm of nature as an exploitable resource. In response to the threats facing the Martuwarra, local Indigenous elders and young leaders from 9 nations have come together to form the Martuwarra Fitzroy River Council. Established in 2018, this alliance of traditional owners aims to maintain the legal, spiritual, cultural, and environmental stewardship of the region. As the world grapples with climate change, the message from the Martuwarra and its people resonates far beyond the Kimberley. Our survival depends on relearning how to live in harmony with the natural world, guided by the wisdom of those who have maintained that connection for millennia.
Great, thank you very much. So you will have access to this animation, and you will also have access to the massive database that we've created called the Living Water Heritage. And so that's a great opportunity to share. So I just want to say thank you for your time. It's such a precious resource, particularly on Sunday. And I hope that I may see some of you in Sydney on Thursday at UTS to hear the voices of other Indigenous people, not just from Australia, but the Pacifica. So thank you all. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if you want to have a pause before questions, or if I've chewed up your time and you want to go straight to questions. So I'll go to Kate and Andrew on this. Thank you.